Welcome to the Natural Year Challenge Household Edition. Today we're going to talk about making liquid soap. We're going to actually make a liquid soap paste. If this is overwhelming, I suggest continue grating a bar of Castile soap, pouring hot boiling water over it, and making your liquid soap that way. The only difference is it's a little cloudier, and that's simply because of the chemical difference between potassium hydroxide and sodium hydroxide. It's only aesthetic. It works great. But I enjoy making liquid soap paste because it does come out clearer. First step is to measure out your oils. In this recipe, we're using 22 ounces of coconut oil, 1 ounce of jojoba oil, and 4 ounces of castor oil. I'm using a slow cooker method. You don't have to do that, but that's what I do. I feel very good about my slow cooker. It has no nicks or anything in it, and it works very easily for this project. So I pour my oils, I measure them ahead of time by weight using the scale, and that's what I did earlier. This recipe uses 16 ounces of distilled water. It's always better to work with distilled water because no impurities, nothing to make it go bad. So that's distilled water, and now I've got my lab coat on, I've got my goggles, and then I've got my gloves. Because anytime you're working with hydroxide, and I learned the hard way, it can splatter and burn terribly. I had my goggles on at the time, but I didn't have long sleeves. Always measure your hydroxide and pour it into the water. Don't put the water in there because then it can splatter. So I get this at 0, and I'm going to measure out 6.25 ounces. Okay, now I'm going to pour this in here, and really I probably should do this while I'm doing it to keep it from evaporating. I've got it on a low setting, and then I combine the hydroxide and the water, and because this is a liquid soap recipe, I don't need to let this cool down. Normally in regular soap you would let it cool down. I really generally try and get some ventilation going because you can see that the lye or potassium hydroxide is emitting some fumes that can be bothersome. In fact, my nose is running, but it's not. It only lasts a minute. You want to be sure that the hydroxide is totally dissolved. That's another mistake I've made in the past. So to me, it's worth the time to really stir it. And stay very far away, keep young kids away. This is probably the dangerous time. So it looks good. And now I'm simply going to, let me explain what I'm going to do. I'm going to pour it into the oils, and then I'm going to stir it to trace. Now with soap, with sodium hydroxide, you can just use this utensil if you wanted. For the liquid, it's a little different bringing it to trace. Trace is the point at which the oils react with the alkaline substance, the mineral substance, which is the potassium hydroxide, very caustic. They react, neutralize, and then solidify. And that's when you're going to have your soap in its initial stage. It needs to cook and truly neutralize before it would be safe to use. But I'll show you how that works. So that is nice and dissolved. What I want to do is put this in some water with vinegar because the vinegar, white vinegar, will neutralize it. So I'm just going to put it right over there, and then I'm going to pour this into the oils carefully. And then I'm going to start mixing. Now for this liquid soap, I'm going to tell you, this is about a 10-minute process. So thanks to the video world, you won't have to watch the whole thing. All right, it's been almost 20 minutes, and all of a sudden, you can see it got very, very thick. So that is the point at which I can just stir. And again, this is not neutralized yet, so this is very caustic. So you want to be extremely careful when you're working with this, but all the bubbles, the air bubbles will dissipate and you've got this paste. Now you're going to let it cook for a good 3 hours, and every half hour you want to stir it again just to make sure it's moving. So I'm going to put the top on. I'm going to wash these very carefully in vinegar. I'm going to start with vinegar to neutralize them, and then I'm going to put this away for 3 hours. Okay, I just want to show you something real quickly. If I were to take, well, this is part of that, and I just want to show you, this is a chemical you use to decide to see when your soap is neutralized and safe, and I'm showing you when it's not. It turns pink. So at the end of 3 hours after I've stirred it, I'm going to put a little, and then I did this obviously with this batch, the last one I made, and it's no longer pink. So this is the liquid soap paste when it's done. And I want to show you that then I will put it in a saucepan and add boiling water and heat it up so that it dissolves into this. And you can see it's not as cloudy. And then I use it all over the house, and you can see that it's very foamy and just a great soap. So that's it for this edition of the Natural Year Challenge Household Edition. Thanks for watching.